I never thought I'd be the type of person to seek revenge. At 63 years old, I believed I had learned to let things go. My name is Julia, and I've lived a life full of compromises and sacrifices. I've been a widow for almost 8 years, now after losing my husband to cancer. We had 2 children together, my son Adam, who's 35, and my daughter Claire, who's 32. Adam married his college sweetheart, Becky, and they have 2 beautiful children, Mason, who's 6, and Lily, who just turned 4. I've always prided myself on being a supportive mother and grandmother. When my husband passed away, I channeled all my love and energy into my family. I moved from our family home in rural Pennsylvania to a small apartment in the suburbs just 15 minutes away from Adam and his family. I wanted to be close enough to help, but not so close that I'd intrude on their lives. Throughout my life, I've put others first. I postponed my college education to support my husband through medical school. I gave up a promising career in library. Science is to raise our children. Don't get me wrong. I don't regret those choices. But sometimes, I wonder what my life would have been like if I had pursued my own dreams with the same dedication I gave to supporting everyone else's. My relationship with Becky had always been complicated. She was polite enough in family gatherings, but there was always this invisible wall between us. I tried to respect her boundaries. I never showed up unannounced, always called before visiting, and was careful not to overstep when it came to the children. I thought we had reached a mutual understanding. That was until the phone call that changed everything. It was a Tuesday morning in early May. I was sipping my coffee and reading a novel when my phone rang. Seeing Adam's name on the screen, I answered with a smile in my voice. "Good morning, sweetheart," I said. "Hey, Mom." His voice sounded stressed. I hate to ask this on such short notice, but we're in a bind. Becky got called into work for an emergency project that's going to last all week. The kid's regular sitter is on vacation, and the backup is sick. Is there any chance you could watch Mason and Lily for the week? We're desperate. My heart swelled. Finally, a chance to spend quality time with my grandchildren and to help my son when he needed me most. "Of course I can," I replied without hesitation. "When do you need me to start?" "Could you come over in about 2 hours? Becky has to be at work by noon, and I've got that conference in Chicago I told you about last month." I had completely forgotten about his conference. That meant I would be staying at their house for the entire week, taking full responsibility for both children. "No problem at all," I assured him. "I'll pack a bag and be right over." 2 hours later, I pulled into their driveway. Their house was a beautiful 2-story colonial in a perfect suburban neighborhood with manicured lawns and friendly neighbors. As I grabbed my suitcase from the trunk, the front door flew open and my grandchildren came running. "Granny!" they shouted in unison, nearly knocking me over with their enthusiastic hugs. "My little treasures!" I laughed, kneeling down to embrace them properly. Mason had his father's eyes, bright blue and curious. Lily was the spitting image of Claire at that age, wild curls and a mischievous grin. Adam appeared in the doorway, dressed in a crisp suit and wheeling a suitcase. "Mom, you're a lifesaver. Thank you so much." "It's my pleasure," I said, meaning every word. "Where's Becky? I thought I'd get some instructions before she leaves for work." "She's upstairs finishing packing. Getting ready," Adam said, stumbling over his words. "She's running late. Her boss really dropped this project on her last minute." I nodded, sympathetically. "That sounds stressful, poor thing." Adam checked his watch. "I've really got to hit the road if I'm going to make my flight. Becky will fill you in on everything." He gave me a quick hug, kissed the children goodbye, and was gone in a whirlwind of "thanks again" and "I'll call tonight." I took the children inside and settled them in the living room with a puzzle while I brought my suitcase upstairs to the guest room. As I passed the master bedroom, I heard Becky talking. The door was slightly ajar. "I know, right? She totally bought it." Becky's voice was animated, excited. No, Adam feels bad about lying, but I told him his mother would be thrilled to spend time with the kids. It's a win-win. I froze, my hand gripping the handle of my suitcase. Girls' Week in Miami is a go. 5 days of sun, sand, and no responsibilities. My heart sank to my stomach. There was no work emergency. Becky was going on vacation with her friends and had lied to me, and apparently convinced my son to lie as well. I quietly continued to my room, my mind racing. Should I confront her? Call Adam? My hands trembled as I set my suitcase down. Before I could decide what to do, I heard Becky's footsteps in the hallway, followed by a light knock on the guest room door. Julia. Oh, good, you're here. Becky stood in the doorway, dressed not in business attire, but in a flowery sundress, her hair freshly styled, and wearing more makeup than I'd ever seen her wear to the office. Thank you so much for doing this. It's such a relief knowing the kids are with family while I'm swamped with this project. The lies flowed so easily from her lips that for a moment I questioned what I'd heard. But the evidence was right in front of me. The large suitcase in the hallway, her vacation outfit, the excitement poorly concealed behind her stressed working mother act. Happy to help, I managed to say, forcing a smile. How long will you be gone? Working, I mean. 5 days. It's going to be intense. She sighed dramatically. I probably won't be able to call much. Cell reception in the office building is terrible, and I'll be in meetings constantly. Of course, I nodded. Don't worry about a thing here. Becky proceeded to give me a rushed rundown of the children's schedules. Mason's kindergarten drop-off and pick-up times. Lily's preschool 3. Days a week, their allergies, which I already knew, bedtime routines, and favorite foods. She handed me a sheet of paper with emergency contacts and the address of her office building. The taxi will be here any minute, she said, checking her phone. Kids, come say goodbye to Mommy. Mason and Lily bounded up the stairs, and Becky gave them each a quick hug and kiss. Be good for Granny, okay? Mommy has to go to work all week, but I'll bring you both something special when I get back. I watched this performance with a growing knot in my stomach. How many times had she lied like this before? Had Adam always been complicit? After Becky left, I took the children downstairs and fixed them lunch. As they ate their peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, I tried to process what had just happened. The betrayal stung, not just from Becky, whom I'd always suspected didn't particularly like me, but from Adam. My own son had lied to my face. Granny, are you sad? Lily asked, her big brown eyes studying my face. I quickly composed myself. No, sweetheart, just thinking about all the fun things we're going to do this week. Can we go to the park? Mason asked hopefully. Absolutely, I assured him. We can go right after lunch. That afternoon at the park, while the children played on the swings, I sat on a bench and contemplated my situation. I had several options. I could call Adam and confront him. I could text Becky and let her know I was aware of her deception. I could even pack up the kids and take them to my apartment, forcing the vacationing parents to cut their trips short. But as I watched Mason help Lily climb the ladder to the slide, another idea began to form in my mind. An idea that would teach both Becky and Adam a valuable lesson without traumatizing my grandchildren or creating a family rift that might prevent me from seeing them in the future. I decided to wait, to be the perfect grandmother for the week. And then, when Becky returned, tanned and refreshed from her beach vacation, while I was exhausted from a week of childcare, that's when I would implement my plan. The week was both wonderful and challenging. I'd forgotten how exhausting it is to care for young children full-time. Mason had soccer practice and a play date. Lily had a dance class and developed a slight fever one night that kept us both awake until dawn. I made meals, read stories, bandaged scraped knees, and mediated sibling squabbles. But there were also magical moments that made my heart full. Mason reading aloud from his favorite book, Lily insisting on braiding my hair with questionable results. Both children cuddled against me during movie night. I treasured these times even as my resentment toward their parents grew. Adam called every evening to check in. Each time, he maintained the fiction that Becky was working late on her project. I played along, never letting on that I knew the truth. I didn't want to have that conversation over the phone while he was away, and I was responsible for his children. On Thursday night, I discovered another piece of the puzzle. While searching for a Band-Aid in the master bathroom after Lily had a minor fall, I found a travel brochure for Miami Beach tucked in a drawer. It was marked with highlights and notes. Thursday, spa day. Friday, yacht club. Saturday, VIP beach club. There were even reservations, confirmations for restaurants and nightclubs. This wasn't some spontaneous getaway. Becky had been planning this for weeks, if not months. And Adam had known about it. They had deliberately deceived me, treating me not as a family member to be respected, but as a convenient, free babysitter they could manipulate. That night, after finally getting both overtired children to sleep, I sat at the kitchen table with a cup of tea and solidified my plan. I would need to be convincing, I would need to be subtle, and most importantly, I would need to maintain my composure throughout. Sunday arrived, the day of Becky's return. According to her work schedule, she would be home around 4 p.m. I spent the morning helping the children make welcome home cards for their mother, partly to keep up appearances, and partly because I didn't want to deprive them of expressing their love. We baked cookies and cleaned up the main living areas of the house. At 3:30 p.m., I took a deep breath and prepared myself mentally. When Becky's taxi pulled up at 4:15, I was ready. The front door opened, and there she stood, tanned, refreshed, wearing designer sunglasses and carrying a small bag from what appeared to be an airport duty-free shop. "Mommy!" The children raced to greet her, my babies. She dropped her bags to embrace them. "I missed you so much. Were you good for Granny?" "We made you cards," Mason announced proudly. "And cookies," aided Lily. I stood in the background, observing the reunion with a pleasant smile fixed on my face. When Becky finally looked up at me, I tilted my head slightly and let my gaze wander past her with a confused expression. "Oh," I said softly. "Hello there. Are you a friend of Claire's?" Becky's smile faltered. "What?" "Julia, it's me, Becky. I blinked several times, looking genuinely perplexed. "Becky, I'm sorry, dear, Are you from the neighborhood?" "Mom?" Becky turned to the children with a nervous laugh. "Kids, go wash up for dinner, okay? I need to talk to Granny." After the children scampered off, Becky approached me cautiously. "Julia, what's going on? Are you feeling all right?" I gave her a vague smile. "I'm fine, dear. It's very nice to meet you. Are you here to pick up the children? They've been such wonderful guests this week." "Guests?" Becky's face drained of color. "Julia, those are your grandchildren, Mason and Lily, my children, with your son Adam." I frowned, appearing genuinely troubled. "My grandchildren? Oh my! I thought they were..." "The neighbor's children, the Wilsons, isn't it? I've been babysitting for the week." No, no, Becky's voice rose in panic. "You've been watching our children while I was at work. Remember? The emergency project. Adam's at his conference." I placed a hand on my forehead. I'm feeling a bit confused. It's been such a stressful week. Those children are quite a handful. I'm not as young as I used to be, you know. Becky fumbled for her phone. "I'm calling Adam. Something's wrong." I wandered into the living room and sat down, maintaining my confused expression as Becky frantically dialed my son. "Adam, something's wrong with your mother. No, she doesn't recognize me. She thinks Mason and Lily are the neighbor's children. I don't know. She seemed fine when I left. Yes, call me right back. Becky approached me cautiously. Julia, Adam's trying to get an earlier flight home. He's very worried about you. Do you know who you are? I'm Julia Anderson, I replied calmly. I'm 63 years old. My husband Harold passed away 8 years ago. I have 2 children, Adam and Claire. I paused meaningfully. But I don't recall ever meeting you before. Are you new in town? The panic in Becky's eyes was almost enough to make me break character, but I held firm. She sat beside me, taking my hand in hers. Julia, I'm Becky, Adam's wife. We've known each other for 12 years. We got married 9 years ago. You were at our wedding. You helped me with my veil when it caught on the church steps. I stared at her blankly. That sounds lovely, but I'm afraid I don't remember. For the next hour, Becky showed me family photos, told me stories of our shared history, and grew increasingly distraught. She called her parents, who suggested she take me to the emergency room. She called her sister, who recommended a neurologist she knew. All the while, I maintained my pleasant confusion, occasionally making comments about the sweet neighbor children and asking when Claire would come to pick me up. By the time the children were in bed, Becky was beside herself. She had ordered dinner delivery, unable to focus enough to cook. She had called Adam 6 times. She had even phoned her primary care doctor's after-hours line. The doctor thinks it might be transient global amnesia, she told me, her voice trembling. It can be brought on by extreme stress. She says I should bring you to the hospital if you show any other symptoms. I nodded placidly. That's very kind. Of you, dear, but I'm sure I'll be fine after a good night's rest. It has been quite a stressful week with those energetic children. Those energetic children are your grandchildren, Becky exclaimed, then immediately softened her tone. I'm sorry. I shouldn't yell. This isn't your fault. No, I thought silently, it's yours. Would you like some tea? I offered, playing the role of polite stranger in her own family. That night, I heard Becky crying in her bedroom. Part of me felt guilty, but a stronger part remembered the casual way she had lied to my face, the vacation plans she had prioritized, over honesty and the way she had manipulated both me and her children. The next morning, I woke early and prepared breakfast for everyone. When Becky entered the kitchen, dark circles under her eyes, I greeted her warmly. Good morning. I hope you slept well. I've made pancakes for the children. Do you know who I am today? Becky asked hopefully. I gave her a blank smile. You're the nice lady who was here yesterday. Barbara, was it? Becky, she corrected, her shoulders slumping. I'm Becky, your daughter-in-law. Oh my, I said, touching my cheek in concern. I'm sure I would remember having a daughter-in-law. Is Adam married? He's so young. He's 35, Julia. We've been married 9 years. Those are our children. At the table. I looked over at Mason and Lily, who were happily devouring their pancakes, oblivious to the tension between the adults. What beautiful children, I remarked. They look just like my Claire when she was little. Becky's phone rang. Adam. Again, she stepped into the living room to answer it, and I could hear her desperate whispers. She's still confused. No, she's functional. She made breakfast. She thinks the kids look like Claire. I don't know what to do. When does your flight? Get in? Okay, I'll call Dr. Reynolds again. When she returned, I noticed her hands were shaking. Julia, Adam will be home this evening. In the meantime, I've made an appointment with our family doctor for this afternoon. Do you think you could come with me? Of course, dear, I agreed pleasantly, though I'm not sure why I would need to see your family doctor. The morning passed with Becky hovering anxiously, showing me more family photos and repeatedly testing my memory with questions about recent events. I consistently failed these tests while being perfectly lucid about events from before Adam met Becky. I made lunch for the children. Grilled cheese sandwiches cut into dinosaur shapes using the cookie cutters I had found in a drawer. Becky watched me with a mixture of relief that I could function normally and distress that I still didn't recognize her or the children as family. At 2 p.m., we all piled into Becky's SUV for the doctor's appointment. In the waiting room, E quietly read a magazine while Becky filled out paperwork, repeatedly glancing at me with worry. When we were called into the examination room, Dr. Reynolds, a kind-faced woman in her 50s, greeted us warmly. "Hello, Julia. Becky tells me you're having some memory issues." "Am I?" I replied innocently. "I feel fine, though I must admit I'm a bit confused about why this nice young woman brought me to see you." The doctor conducted a series of cognitive tests, which I passed with flying colors, except for any questions related to Becky or my grandchildren. Those I consistently got wrong. "It's very unusual," Dr. Reynolds told Becky after the examination. "Her cognitive function is excellent, and she has perfect recall of most of her life. It's just this specific gap around you and the children. I'd like to refer her for an MRI, just to rule out any physical causes." Becky nodded, looking increasingly haggard. "Her son, my husband, will be home tonight. Shall we take her to the emergency room in the meantime?" Dr. Reynolds considered this. "She's not in any immediate danger. As long as she's not confused about who she is or where she is and doesn't show any physical symptoms, it's probably fine to wait until tomorrow for further tests. Just keep an eye on her." Back at the house, Becky was clearly at her wits' end. She called Adam with an update, then her mother, then a friend who was a psychiatric nurse. Each conversation ended with her looking more distressed. Meanwhile, I cheerfully played with the neighbor children, read them stories, and helped them with a craft project, all while maintaining my pleasant confusion about who they really were. By the time Adam's car pulled into the driveway at 7:30 p.m., Becky was barely holding it together. She rushed out to meet him, and through the window, I could see her animated explanation, Adam's concerned expression, and then both of them hurrying toward the house. "Mom?" Adam entered cautiously, as if approaching a wild animal. "How are you feeling?" I brightened immediately. "Adam, there you are. I was wondering when you'd come pick me up. I've had the loveliest time babysitting the neighbor children, but I'm ready to go home now." Adam's face fell. "Mom, these are your grandchildren, Mason and Lily, my children, with Becky, my wife." He gestured to Becky, who stood nervously in the doorway. I looked at Becky with polite interest. "Oh, is this your girlfriend? She's very pretty." "Wife, Mom. We've been married 9 years." I laughed lightly. "Don't be silly, Adam. You're not old enough to have been married 9 years, and you certainly don't have children this age." Adam and Becky exchanged alarmed glances. After getting the children ready for bed, they convened in the kitchen for a whispered conference, occasionally glancing at me as I placidly flipped through a magazine in the living room. That night, they insisted I stay in their guest room again, rather than returning to my apartment. Adam checked on me repeatedly, his face etched with worry. The guilt was beginning to gnaw at me, but I reminded myself of their deception. One more day, I decided. Just one more day of this charade, and then I would recover my memory. The next morning, day 3 of my performance, I maintained my confusion. Over breakfast, Adam tried a different approach. "Mom, what's the last thing you remember clearly about me?" "About my life?" I appeared to think hard. "Well, you were dating that lovely girl from your economics class. What was her name? Jennifer? Jessica?" "Jillian," Adam supplied, his voice strained. "Mom, that was 13 years ago. We broke up before I graduated college." I frowned. "That can't be right. It was just last Christmas that you brought her to dinner." Adam ran his hands through his hair in frustration. Mom, last Christmas you came here, to our house. We had ham and you brought your famous apple pie. Mason and Lily opened their presents from you. You got Mason that remote-controlled dinosaur he'd been begging for, and Lily the doctor kit. That sounds lovely, I said vaguely, though I don't recall it. Adam's phone rang, his sister Claire, calling for an update. I could hear his stressed explanation, and then he handed me the phone. Mom? Claire's worried voice came through. Are you okay? Adam says you don't remember Becky or the kids. Claire, sweetheart, how are you? How's the new job in Chicago? Mom, I've been in Seattle for 6 years. I moved there after grad school, remember? I paused, allowing confusion to cross my face. Seattle? No, you're in Chicago. You just started at that advertising firm last fall. Claire's voice grew more concerned. Mom, that was 10 years ago. I left that job after 2 years and moved to Seattle. I'm married now, to Patrick. We've been together 8 years, married for 5. You were at our wedding. Patrick? I repeated, sounding utterly bewildered. After a few more minutes of increasingly distressing conversation, Adam took the phone back. I heard him confirming an MRI appointment for later that day and discussing whether Claire should fly in. The morning passed in a blur of worry and planning around me. Adam called his office to extend his absence. Becky rescheduled a meeting. Who knows if this one was real? And together they researched memory specialists. All the while I remained pleasantly confused, consistently failing to recognize Becky or acknowledge Mason and Lily as my grandchildren. At noon, Adam's phone rang again. He answered it in the kitchen, but I could still hear his side of the conversation. Hey, Rick, no, I can't make the presentation tomorrow. Family emergency. My mom's having some serious memory issues. No, it just started suddenly. When Becky got back from, he stopped abruptly, and I strained to hear the rest. Yeah, when Becky got back from her work trip. Mom was watching the kids while I was at the conference, and Becky was working. Even now, he was maintaining the lie. My resolve strengthened. The doctor thinks it might be stress-induced. She's not recognizing Becky or the kids at all. Yeah, it's pretty scary. After the call, Adam returned to the living room where I was helping Lily with a coloring book. He watched us for a moment, his expression a mixture of confusion and sorrow. Mom, he said finally, we have an MRI scheduled for 3 p.m. Do you think you're up for that? An MRI? I repeated, looking puzzled. Whatever for? To check your brain, Mom, to see why you're having these memory problems. I frowned. I don't have memory problems, Adam. I remember everything perfectly well, though I do wish you'd take me home soon. I miss my own bed. Adam closed his eyes briefly, gathering his patience. Mom, please, just cooperate with the doctors. We're all very worried about you. I patted his hand reassuringly. There's nothing to worry about, sweetheart. I'm perfectly fine. But as I said, I caught a glimpse of genuine fear in my son's eyes, and something inside me shifted. The game had gone far enough. He and Becky had learned their lesson. They had experienced genuine distress, had put their lives on hold, had prioritized my well-being over everything else for the past 2 days. It was time to end the charade. At 2:30 p.m., we were preparing to leave for the MRI appointment when Becky pulled Adam aside. They stepped into the kitchen, but their stage whispers carried to where I sat in the living room. I can't do this anymore, Becky hissed. I feel awful. About what? Adam asked. Mom's condition. I know, it's terrifying. No, well, yes, that too. But I mean about the lie, Becky confessed, her voice breaking. This is my fault. I wasn't on a work trip, Adam. You know that. I was in Miami with the girls. I lied to your mother and made you lie too. And now she's having some kind of breakdown. And it's because I pushed her too hard. making her watch the kids all week at her age. Becky, that's ridiculous, Adam replied, though his voice lacked conviction. Mom's memory issues can't be because you went on vacation. That's not how the brain works. But what if it is? Becky insisted. What if the stress of taking care of two energetic kids for a week straight was too much for her? She's in her 60s, Adam. And instead of being honest and asking her properly if she'd mind helping us so I could have a break, I manipulated her. I made up that whole story about an emergency at work. We both did, Adam admitted quietly. I went along with it. And now look what's happened. She doesn't even recognize me or the kids. What if she never does again? What if we broke? Your mother? The genuine remorse in Becky's voice surprised me. I hadn't expected her to crack so quickly or to take full responsibility. I had anticipated a much longer game, with me gradually recovering my memory over the course of a week, making them squirm with guilt the entire time. But hearing the real fear and regret in her voice made me reconsider. Perhaps a quicker resolution would be more merciful and ultimately more effective. I quietly stood up and made my way to the kitchen doorway, where I paused, listening to their continued conversation. Maybe we should tell her the truth, Becky suggested. Maybe if we confess, it will help her somehow. How would that help? Adam sounded skeptical. If she doesn't even remember who you are, how would telling her about a lie she doesn't remember change anything? I don't know. Becky's voice rose in frustration. I just know I can't live with myself if we don't at least try. Your mother is one of the kindest people I know, and I took advantage of that. I treated her like a free babysitter instead of family. I chose that moment to clear my throat. They both whirled around, their faces a mixture of guilt and concern. You weren't on a work trip, I stated calmly, dropping the confused act. You were in Miami with your friends. I heard you on the phone the day you left. The silence that followed was deafening. Becky's mouth fell open and Adam's face drained of color. Mom, he finally managed. You remember. I never forgot, I said simply. I've been pretending for the past 3 days. Becky sank into a kitchen chair, her legs seemingly unable to support her anymore. You were faking all of it. I nodded, maintaining my calm demeanor though my heart was racing. I heard you on the phone when I arrived to babysit, talking about your girls' week in Miami and how I had totally bought it. Then I found your travel brochure in the bathroom drawer with all your plans highlighted. You never had a work emergency. You just wanted a vacation and thought I'd be an easy mark. Adam seemed unable to process what he was hearing. But the doctor's appointment, the cognitive tests. I answered everything correctly except questions about Becky and the children. I explained. I knew exactly what I was doing. But why, Becky whispered, tears forming in her eyes. Why would you put us through that? We've been terrified. I sat down across from her, folding my hands on the table. How do you think I felt when I discovered you had lied to me? That you had manipulated me into providing free child care under false pretenses? That my own son was complicit in deceiving me? Adam flinched at that, unable to meet my eyes. I'm not just a convenient babysitter to be used whenever you want a break, I continued, my voice steady but firm. I'm family. I deserve honesty and respect, the same as anyone else. We know, Adam said quietly. You're right, we were wrong. I adore my grandchildren, I went on. I would have happily watched them to give you both a break. All you had to do was ask honestly. Becky was openly crying now. I'm so sorry, Julia. I don't even know why I lied. It just seemed easier somehow. And then it snowballed, and Adam didn't want to go along with it at first. But I convinced him you wouldn't mind, and I minded the lie. I interrupted gently. Not the child care. Adam moved to the table and sat beside his wife, taking her hand. Mom, What we did was inexcusable, but scaring us like this, making us think you had brain damage or something, wasn't that taking it too far? I considered his question seriously. Perhaps it was extreme, but it got your attention, didn't it? Sometimes a dramatic gesture is needed to make an important point. And my point is this: I won't be taken for granted or manipulated. Not by anyone, not even family, especially not family. We sat in silence for a moment, the weight of my words settling over us. What happens now? Becky finally asked, wiping her eyes. Now, I said, rising from the table. We cancel that unnecessary MRI. Then we have an honest conversation about boundaries and expectations. And then I go home to my apartment, because I've spent enough time in your guest room for one week. And the kids? Adam asked hesitantly. Will you still want to see them? Of course I will, I assured him, softening my tone. They're innocent in all this. I love them more than anything, but from now on when you ask me to watch them, I expect the real reason. No more lies. Adam nodded, looking both relieved and chastened. That's more than fair. And one more thing, I added, allowing a small smile to cross my face. I expect to be compensated for the week I just spent providing full-time childcare under false pretenses. Adam's eyebrows shot up. Compensated? You mean paid? Yes, I said firmly. The going rate for a week of live-in childcare in this area is about $200, I believe. Consider it a lesson in valuing people's time and labor appropriately. Becky looked at Adam, then back at me, before nodding slowly. That's fair. We'll pay you, of course. Good, I replied. You can drop it off next Sunday when you bring the children for their regular visit. Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to pack my things. I turned and left the kitchen, feeling a strange mixture of emotions. Vindication, yes, but also sadness that such a lesson had been necessary in the first place. As I folded my clothes and placed them in my suitcase, I heard a soft knock on the guest room door. It was Becky, her eyes still red from crying. Can I come in? She asked tentatively. I nodded, continuing to pack. I want you to know that I truly am sorry, she began, sitting on the edge of the bed. Not just because I got caught, or because you scared us with the memory thing. I'm sorry because what I did was wrong, and I knew it was wrong even while I was doing it. I paused my packing to look at her. Why did you do it then? Becky sighed heavily. Honestly, I'm not even sure. Part of it was that I really did need a break. Being a full-time mom is exhausting, and between that and work, I was burning out. But I could have just told you that. Yes, you could have, I agreed. But there's more to it, she continued, her voice quieter now. I think I've always felt intimidated by you. You're so capable, so self-sufficient. The kids adore you. Adam respects you enormously. I sometimes feel like I don't measure up to the standard you set. I put down the sweater I was folding and sat beside her on the bed. Is that how you see me? As some kind of standard to measure yourself against? Becky nodded, not meeting my eyes. You raised two amazing kids mostly, on your own after your husband got sick. You never complain. You're always there when we need you. Meanwhile, I'm constantly feeling overwhelmed with just two kids and a husband who helps. For the first time, I saw Becky not as my son's wife or my grandchildren's mother, but as a young woman struggling with her own insecurities and challenges. Oh, Becky, I said softly. You've only seen the highlight reel of my life. You didn't see me crying in the bathroom when the kids were asleep because I was so exhausted I couldn't think straight. You didn't see the frozen dinners and unwashed laundry piling up when Harold was at his sickest and I was trying to do everything myself. You didn't see me lose my temper or make mistakes or feel completely inadequate. She looked up at me, surprised. Really? Really, I confirmed. Motherhood isn't a competition. We're all just doing our best with the resources we have. And it's okay to ask for help, honest help, when you need it. I'll remember that, she promised. And I'll never lie to you again. I value our relationship too much to risk it like that. I nodded, accepting her words but reserving judgment until her actions could prove them true. I appreciate that, Will. You stay for dinner at least, she asked. The kids would be so disappointed if you left without saying goodbye properly. I considered for a moment, then agreed. I'll stay for dinner, but then I really do need to get home. My plants are probably all dead by now. Becky laughed, a genuine sound of relief. Thank you, and thank you for forgiving us. Or at least being willing to work toward forgiveness. Family is complicated, I said simply, but it's worth the effort. Dinner that evening was a subdued affair. The children, picking up on the adults' strange mood, were unusually quiet. After we ate, I gathered them on the couch for one last story before I left. Granny, Mason asked as I closed the book, do you remember us now? I hugged him close, my heart aching a little at the innocent question. I never really forgot you, sweetheart. Granny was just playing a rather elaborate game. I'm sorry if it confused you. It's okay, he said, his forgiveness immediate and complete in the way only children can manage. I like games. Lily climbed into my lap. Will you come back tomorrow? Not tomorrow, I told her gently, but soon, very soon. After a round of hugs and kisses, Adam drove me home to my apartment. The short drive was mostly silent until he parked in front of my building. I betrayed your trust, he said finally, staring straight ahead through the windshield. I'm supposed to be the one person you can always count on, and I let you down. I'm so sorry, Mom. Why did you go along with it? I asked the question that had been troubling me most. You've never been a liar, Adam, he sighed deeply. Becky and we've been struggling lately. Nothing major, just the usual stresses, work, kids, not enough time together. When she suggested this trip with her friends, I thought it might be good for her, good for us. She seemed so excited about it. And when she suggested the work emergency story, it didn't seem like a big deal at the time. I told myself you wouldn't mind either way. But you knew it was wrong, I pointed out. I did, he admitted. And I almost called you after that first day to confess. But then I told myself it was too late, that you'd be hurt or angry if you found out, and that it was better to just let it play out. I rationalized it away. That's what we do with our mistakes, I said quietly. We rationalize them because we can't bear to see ourselves as the villains in our own stories. Adam turned to look at me, his eyes shadowed in the dim light of the car. Are we okay, Mom? You and me? I reached over and squeezed his hand. We will be. It may take some time to fully rebuild the trust, but we'll get there. You're my son and I love you unconditionally. That doesn't mean I'll accept being treated poorly, but it does mean I'll always be willing to work through our problems. He nodded, blinking rapidly against what I suspected were tears. I love you too, Mom, and I promise nothing like this will ever happen again. I believe you, I said, and I meant it. Now help me with this suitcase. My arms are tired from wrangling. Your children all weak. He managed a small laugh and got out to retrieve my bag from the trunk. After saying goodbye to Adam, I entered my apartment with a profound sense of relief. The familiar surroundings, the blessed quiet, the absence of toys underfoot. It was heaven after a week of constant childcare. As promised, the following Sunday, Adam and Becky brought the children for their regular visit, along with an envelope containing white $200 in cash. We also brought this, Becky said, handing me a gift bag. Inside was a beautiful leather-bound journal with my name embossed on the cover. What's this for? I asked, running my fingers over the soft leather. It's a memory journal, she explained. Not because we think you need help remembering things. Obviously your memory is frighteningly good. She smiled weakly at her own joke. But because we want you to record your memories and stories for the children. your childhood, your life, with Harold, raising Adam and Claire, all the things they should know about their family history. I was touched by the thoughtfulness of the gift. Thank you. This is lovely. We also wanted to ask you something, Adam added, glancing at Becky, for confirmation. We've been talking, and we realize we need more regular help with the kids. Honest help, not manipulated help. We'd like to set up a regular schedule, Becky continued. Maybe every other Wednesday and one weekend day a month? We'd pay you, of course. At the going rate, Adam added quickly. I considered their offer. How about we make it every Thursday instead? I have my book club on Wednesdays. Thursday is perfect, Becky agreed, relief evident in her voice. And I don't need payment for regular grandma time, I clarified. That's part of the joy of being a grandmother. But for extended periods or special circumstances, yes, compensation would be appropriate. They both nodded in agreement, and just like that, a new understanding was established between us. It wasn't perfect. Trust, once broken, takes time to fully mend, but it was a solid beginning. The children, oblivious to the negotiations taking place, had already spread their toys across my living room floor, creating the cheerful chaos that I had come to associate with their visits. Granny, come see, Lily called, proudly displaying a tower of blocks she had constructed. As I knelt beside her to admire her architectural achievement, I caught Becky watching us with a soft expression. Our eyes met, and she gave me a small, tentative smile, one that contained gratitude, apology, and perhaps the beginning of genuine affection. I smiled back, thinking about the strange journey we had taken over the past week. From deception to pretense to truth, we had all learned valuable lessons about honesty, respect, and the true meaning of family. 3 months later, our new arrangement was working beautifully. Every Thursday, I spent the day with Mason and Lily, giving Becky time to catch up on work or simply have a few hours to herself. Once a month, the children stayed overnight with me, allowing Adam and Becky to have a date night. The change in my relationship with Becky was the most remarkable transformation. Gone was the polite distance, replaced by genuine warmth and growing friendship. She began calling me for advice, not just about the children, but about cooking, gardening, and occasionally, even her marriage to my son. I never had a good relationship with my own mother. She confessed to me one afternoon as we sat on my balcony, watching the children play in the small community garden below. She was always critical, never satisfied with anything I did. I think that's why I kept you at arm's length for so long. I didn't know how to have a healthy mother-daughter relationship. And now, I asked, curious about how she viewed our current dynamic. Now I feel like I have the mother-in-law I always hoped for, but didn't think existed outside of movies, she said with a smile. Someone who supports me but doesn't smother me, who loves my children but respects my parenting decisions, who offers advice but doesn't force it on me. I reached over and patted her hand. I'm glad we found our way here, even if the journey was unconventional. You mean, even though I lied to you and you pretended to have amnesia? She laughed, now able to see the humor in our situation. Exactly, I grinned. Not the traditional bonding method, but effective nonetheless. As for Adam, our relationship had deepened in a way I hadn't anticipated. The incident had forced him to see me not just as his mother, but as a person with feelings, boundaries, and dignity that deserved respect. He called more often, not out of guilt, but genuine interest in my life. He began including me in family decisions that might affect me, rather than presenting them as fate's accomplice. One evening, he arrived at my apartment alone, carrying a small potted orchid. What's the occasion? I asked, admiring the delicate, white blooms. No occasion, he replied, following me to the kitchen as I filled a watering can for the plant. I just wanted to say thank you. For what? For the lesson you taught us. It wasn't just about honesty or respect, though those were important. It was about seeing you as a complete person with your own life and needs, not just as our convenient support system. I set down the watering can and turned to face him. "That might be the most insightful thing you've ever said to me," he grinned, sheepishly. "Well, therapy is good for something, I guess." "You're in therapy." This was news to me. Becky and I both are, separately and together. We realized after everything that happened that we had some issues to work through, not just about how we treated you, but about our communication with each other, our parenting, all of it. I felt a surge of pride in my son's maturity. "I'm impressed, Adam. That takes courage." "I learned from the best," he said, giving me a quick hug. "You've never been afraid to stand up for yourself, even when it's uncomfortable. Even when it means pretending to have amnesia for 3 days and scaring the life out of your family." I laughed, nudging him with my elbow. "Let's hope that particular lesson doesn't need repeating." "Never again," he promised solemnly, though his eyes twinkled with humor. "Though I have to admit, it makes for a great story. Claire still can't believe she missed the whole thing." Indeed, my daughter had been equal parts horrified and amused when she heard about what had transpired. "Only you, Mom," she had said during our weekly phone call, "would come up with something so deviously brilliant." As I reflect now on the events of that week and the months that followed, I realize that sometimes the most important family lessons come from unexpected sources. My amnesia episode had been a drastic measure, perhaps, but it had reset the dynamics of our family in ways that gentle conversations never could have. I still have the memory journal that Becky and Adam gave me. I filled nearly half its pages with stories from my life, some funny, some sad, all honest. Someday, when Mason and Lily are older, they'll read about their grandmother's adventure in pretend amnesia and hopefully understand the deeper message, beneath the surface drama, that every person, regardless of age or role, deserves to be treated with honesty, respect, and appreciation. And perhaps they'll also learn that even grandmothers can be crafty when pushed too far, a valuable warning for anyone who might consider crossing me in the future. Because while I may be a loving, supportive grandmother of 63, I'm also a woman who knows her worth and isn't afraid to demand the respect I deserve. Even if it means pretending not to recognize my own grandchildren for 3 days straight. That might seem extreme to some, but as I've learned throughout my life, sometimes the most powerful statements are made through actions, not words. And judging by the profound changes in my family since that memorable week, I'd say my particular brand of amnesia was exactly the wake-up call we all needed. Now, if you'll excuse me, it's nearly Thursday, and I have 2 wonderful grandchildren coming to spend the day with their granny, a granny who remembers them perfectly well, thank you very much, and who will never again be taken for granted by anyone in her family. And that, my friends, is worth every moment of my little charade.